He was the quietest worker at the airport. He would disappear among the sounds of aircraft until he spotted a suspicious passenger and they saw how he tracked him. Welcome to the Human Stories. Before we begin this powerful story of hidden vigilance, quiet protection, and airport security, tell me in the comments which city you're watching from today. And if you believe stories like this need to be remembered, hit that subscribe button and help us make sure they are. O'Hare International Airport in Chicago is one of the busiest airports in the world. Millions of passengers pass through here every year, each with their own stories, destinations, and purposes. And among the thousands of airport employees who kept this massive operation running, there was an old man most travelers never noticed, a baggage handler everyone simply called Eddie. He arrived every morning at exactly 5 a.m. for the early shift, never late, never early. He put on the same orange safety vest, picked up his equipment cart, and began another long day moving luggage from planes to baggage claim. He never listened to music through headphones like other workers, rarely talked to colleagues, just focused on his work. Every bag, every passenger, every flight. The younger airport employees knew him by sight, especially Marcus Johnson, 24 years old, who had been working airport security for 2 years. Marcus and other security personnel often saw the old man in the same areas between the baggage carousels, quietly loading and unloading suitcases, never hurrying, as if he had all the time in the world. "Why does this old guy move so slowly?" Marcus had asked his supervisor, Lieutenant Sarah Chen, once. "He's thorough, not slow. Eddie's been here 20 years, never had a single complaint or incident. Passengers trust him with their belongings." That was exactly right. Eddie handled every piece of luggage with care, never rushed, never dropped anything. He treated each suitcase as if it contained someone's most precious possessions, as if he wasn't just moving bags, but protecting people's lives and property. One morning, Marcus's curiosity got the better of him, and he approached Eddie during a break. "Good morning, sir," he said respectfully. Eddie looked up from his equipment checklist. His face showed the wear of decades working outdoors and in all weather, but his eyes were sharp and constantly alert. "Morning, son," he replied in a low, measured voice. "How long have you been working here?" 20 years come next month. "You must know this airport pretty well." Eddie set down his clipboard. "Know every corner, every entrance, every security protocol." This answer surprised Marcus. There was a precision in the man's voice, as if he understood airport operations from a security perspective, not just baggage handling. "You seem to notice everything that goes on." Eddie smiled slightly. "Part of the job. People trust us with their belongings. That's a responsibility." That was it. Marcus nodded and returned to his security checkpoint duties. Eddie went back to his baggage cart as if nothing had happened. Over the following weeks, Marcus began watching Eddie more closely. There were different things about his working style, how he observed passengers as they collected their bags, very systematic, very aware, how he positioned himself to have clear sight lines of multiple areas simultaneously, and his movement patterns, always strategic, never random, as if he was conducting surveillance rather than just doing manual labor. "Lieutenant Chen," Marcus said to his supervisor one day, "what do you know about Eddie's background?" "Not much detail. He came here 20 years ago with excellent references from the Air Force. Clean record, reliable, never missed a day." "Air Force?" "Yeah, some kind of security background, I think, but I don't know the specifics." But Marcus's curiosity was growing steadily. There was something different about Eddie, his way of reading people, his understanding of airport security systems, that constant environmental awareness. He began observing Eddie more carefully. The man's movements, purposeful and economical, never wasted motion. His positioning, always where he could observe maximum area with minimum exposure. And his eyes, constantly scanning faces, behaviors, anomalies. One day, while Eddie was organizing his equipment, Marcus noticed something unusual in his work bag, a small pair of binoculars and what looked like a hand-drawn map of the airport terminal layout. Strange items for a baggage handler to carry. This guy might have serious security training, Marcus thought to himself. He would learn just how right he was on that eventful Tuesday. Tuesday morning, 7:30 a.m. The airport was in its usual controlled chaos of morning departures and arrivals. Marcus was at his security checkpoint. Eddie was working the international baggage claim area, and thousands of passengers were moving through the terminal. Everything seemed normal until Marcus noticed Eddie had stopped his usual routine. Instead of loading bags onto carts, Eddie was standing perfectly still, watching something intently. Marcus followed his gaze and saw what had caught Eddie's attention. A man in his 30s, medium build, dark jacket, carrying only a small backpack. Nothing obviously suspicious, but something about him had triggered Eddie's interest. Marcus watched as Eddie began what could only be described as surveillance. The old baggage handler didn't approach the man directly, but began moving his equipment in a pattern that kept the suspicious passenger in sight at all times. When the man moved toward the ticketing area, Eddie found reasons to work in that direction. When the man sat down near a restaurant, Eddie positioned himself with a clear view while appearing to organize luggage. This wasn't random. This was professional surveillance technique. Marcus keyed his radio. "Lieutenant Chen, this is Marcus at Checkpoint 3. We might have a situation developing." "What kind of situation?" "Eddie, our baggage handler, is tracking someone, and he's doing it like he knows what he's doing." Lieutenant Chen appeared at Marcus's position within 5 minutes. "Where are they?" Marcus pointed toward the departure gate area. "Eddie's maintained visual contact for 20 minutes now. The target keeps changing positions, but Eddie stayed with him." "Target?" Chen raised an eyebrow. "That's what this looks like to me. Professional surveillance." They watched as the suspicious passenger made his way toward the security screening area. Eddie immediately began moving equipment in that direction, but something about the man's behavior had clearly escalated Eddie's concern. Instead of his usual slow, methodical movements, Eddie was now moving with purpose and urgency. The suspicious passenger approached the TSA checkpoint, but instead of getting in line, he began looking around nervously, checking exits, studying security camera positions. Classic pre-operational surveillance behavior. That's when Eddie made his move. Eddie abandoned his equipment cart and walked directly to the nearest security office. Marcus and Lieutenant Chen watched as he spoke rapidly to the duty supervisor, pointing toward the suspicious individual. Within seconds, additional security personnel were moving into position. "This is Lieutenant Chen," she radioed to Airport Security Command. "We have a developing situation at Terminal 3 TSA checkpoint. Request backup and supervisor response." "Copy, Lieutenant. Units responding. What's the nature of the situation?" "Unknown at this time, but our baggage handler has identified a potential threat." The suspicious passenger must have sensed the increased security presence because he suddenly changed direction, heading toward the exit instead of proceeding through security. That's when Eddie did something that shocked everyone watching. He intercepted the man's path, not aggressively, but with clear intent. "Excuse me, sir," Eddie said calmly. "Did you find your connecting flight information?" The man looked startled. "I'm sorry." "You seem to be looking for something. I work here. Maybe I can help you find your gate." It was brilliant. Eddie had engaged the suspect in a way that appeared helpful while preventing his exit and gathering intelligence. "No, I'm fine," the man said, but his nervousness was now obvious. "Actually, I think I need to leave." "Leave?" Eddie's voice remained calm, but his positioning had subtly blocked the man's direct path to the exit. "Did you miss your flight? We might be able to get you rebooked." By now, airport security had formed a loose perimeter around the area. The suspicious passenger realized he was being watched, and his behavior became more erratic. "I just need to go," he said, trying to push past Eddie. "Sir, I understand you're stressed," Eddie said, still calm, "but airport security would like to have a quick conversation with you. It's just routine." The man panicked and reached into his backpack. That's when Eddie's 20 years of Air Force Security Forces training took over. In one smooth motion, he grabbed the man's wrist, controlled the backpack, and had him on the ground in a textbook takedown. "Security, suspect in custody," Eddie called out as if he'd done this 1,000 times before. Airport security rushed in to secure the scene. Lieutenant Chen and Marcus arrived as Eddie was helping the man to his feet, the backpack secured and the situation completely under control. "Sir," Lieutenant Chen said to Eddie, "that was incredible. How did you know?" Eddie dusted off his orange vest. 23 years Air Force Security Forces. You don't lose the instincts." "Air Force Security Forces?" Marcus was stunned. "What's your rank?" "Master Sergeant Eddie Rodriguez, retired, specialized in force protection and threat assessment." The suspicious passenger was taken into custody, and a search of his backpack revealed materials for making fake identification documents and detailed surveillance notes about airport security procedures. "Master Sergeant," Lieutenant Chen said with newfound respect, Why didn't you tell us about your background? Eddie picked up his equipment cart. Didn't need to tell anyone until today. But you could be working in airport security, using your training officially. I am using my training every day, just differently. How so? Eddie gestured around the terminal. I see everything from down here. Passengers trust baggage handlers. They don't guard their conversations or behaviors around us. I've been watching for threats for 20 years, quietly. Marcus now understood. Eddie wasn't just moving luggage. He was conducting continuous security surveillance, protecting the airport and its passengers without anyone knowing. The next day, Eddie came to work at the same time, wearing the same orange vest, pushing the same equipment cart. But now airport security looked at him completely differently. Good morning, Master Sergeant, Marcus said. Just Eddie is fine, son. We're all security here, just different uniforms. Marcus smiled with new respect. That day, Eddie talked to Marcus and Lieutenant Chen. Really talked for the first time. You know, Eddie said, in the Air Force, we learned that security isn't always about uniforms and badges. Sometimes it's about being invisible, being trusted, being where threats don't expect you. Marcus nodded. Is that why you work baggage instead of security? Best surveillance position in the airport. People ignore baggage handlers, but we see everything. Do you miss it? Active duty? Eddie thought for a moment. Miss the mission clarity, miss knowing every day that security mattered, but I don't miss the deployments, the combat zones. And now? Now I protect differently. Same mission, peaceful environment, invisible uniform. From that day forward, Marcus and the security team watched Eddie work with new appreciation. They could see he wasn't just handling luggage. He was conducting continuous threat assessment, monitoring passenger behavior patterns, maintaining security awareness throughout his shift. This man wasn't an ordinary baggage handler. He had protected military bases for 23 years. Now he was protecting an airport and its passengers using the same skills. A week later, airport management offered Eddie a position in the official security department. Eddie politely declined. I'm more effective where I am, but your experience could be valuable in security operations. It is valuable, right where I am. Airport personnel now treated Eddie differently, especially other veterans. One day, an old Air Force veteran recognized Eddie's bearing and approached him. Air Force? He asked. Retired security forces. Thank you for your service, Master Sergeant. Eddie nodded. Thank you for yours, Airman. Marcus watched this exchange. There was a brotherhood between these men that transcended words. Eddie, Marcus said later, will you stay in baggage handling as long as there are passengers to protect? And if another threat appears? Eddie smiled. Then I'll handle it. Security Force's motto, Defensor Fortis, defenders of the force, that doesn't retire. Marcus now understood. Eddie wasn't just handling baggage, he was a guardian, protecting the airport and everyone in it. Sometimes the most critical security happens invisibly. Master Sergeant Eddie Rodriguez had appeared to be just a baggage handler for 20 years, until the day a real threat forced him to reveal who he really was. Now I ask you, have you ever met someone like that? Someone who seemed ordinary but was actually protecting you without you knowing? Share their stories in the comments. At The Human Stories, we believe in keeping these stories alive. If this story moved you, subscribe, share, and help these voices survive. We'll see you in the next one, and until then, if you see an airport worker moving quietly through their duties, look twice. They might be the thin line between safety and danger.